You know that feeling when you can't stop thinking about someone? It's 11 p.m. You should be asleep, but your brain just keeps going, replaying something they said 3 days ago, imagining conversations that haven't happened, checking your phone for no real reason. Somewhere in the middle of all that, you catch yourself thinking, what is wrong with me? Here's the answer: nothing. What's happening inside your head right now has been happening to every human who has ever lived, including the ones who had no language, no shelter, and no concept of what a feeling even was. Your ancestors felt exactly this. And we're going to talk about why. Let me ask you something first. Where do you think romantic love came from? Most people have this vague idea that love is a product of civilization, that at some point humans developed enough culture, enough poetry, enough safety to start caring about something beyond just survival. The idea goes something like, first we survived, then we built societies, then we had the luxury of falling in love. That idea is completely wrong, and not just a little wrong, wrong by millions of years. Love, real, deep, specific attachment to another individual, isn't something civilization invented. It's something your ancestors were already doing long before civilization existed, long before cities, before language, before fire was even controlled. We have evidence of this. And it starts with a skeleton. In 2009, a team of researchers led by anthropologist Owen Lovejoy at Kent State University published an analysis of one of the most significant fossil discoveries in human history. The fossil was called Artie. She was a female of a species called Ardipithecus ramidus, and she lived 4.4 million years ago. What Lovejoy's team found in Artie's skeleton, and in the skeletons of the males around her, was something unexpected. In most primate species, the males are dramatically larger than females. Gorillas, baboons, the males can be twice the size of females. That size difference exists because males compete violently for mating rights. Bigger wins. But in Artie's species, the size difference between males and females had already started to shrink significantly. Lovejoy's interpretation: the males had started to shift away from violent competition. They had started to form committed bonds with individual females. They were providing, cooperating, staying. This pattern, one male, one female, sustained attachment, is what evolutionary biologists call pair bonding. And it appears in the human lineage at least 3.5 million years ago, before we had fire, before we had stone tools that we made deliberately, before we had anything resembling language. The attachment mechanism that pull toward one specific person is older than all of it. So when you feel something specific for someone specific, and it doesn't feel like a choice, and it doesn't feel like a thought, that's not a feeling you learned. That's a 3.5 million year old piece of hardware running in real time. Here's something that seems to contradict itself. We just said, love is a survival instinct, something your brain is designed to do, something your body was built for. So why, when it goes wrong, does it feel like something is actually dying inside you? Why does losing someone feel worse than almost any physical injury? That question has an answer, and it's not what you'd expect. But before I get there, there's something happening inside your brain right now, in this moment, that I need to show you first. Because once you understand what love actually does to your brain, the pain part is going to make complete sense. In the early 2000s, an anthropologist named Helen Fisher at the American Museum of Natural History had an idea. She wanted to look inside the brains of people who were madly in love. So she recruited people who described themselves as intensely in love, the kind of love where you can't stop thinking about the person, where everything reminds you of them, where you'd reorganize your entire life around them. She put them in an fMRI machine. The scanners showed what was happening in their brains while they looked at photos of the person they loved. Here's what she expected to find: activity in the emotional centers of the brain, the parts associated with feelings, warmth, attachment. Here's what she actually found. The most activated regions were the ventral tegmental area and the caudate nucleus, brain structures associated with reward, motivation, craving, and goal-directed behavior. In other words, not the emotional brain, the wanting brain, the same parts of the brain that activate when someone craves a drug they're addicted to. Love isn't primarily an emotion. It's a drive. It works more like hunger or thirst or the compulsion to scratch an itch, except it's pointed at a specific person. So when you lie awake at night, brain running at full speed, unable to stop thinking about one specific person, your brain hasn't lost its mind. Your brain has classified that person as an unfinished task. And your brain, this ancient relentless system, does not let go of unfinished tasks easily. I want to pause here and ask you something. Think about the last person you genuinely liked. Maybe you're thinking about them right now. What was the first thing you noticed about them? Was it the way they moved, the way they talked, their eyes, their voice? Or was it something harder to name, just a feeling when they walked into the room? Drop it in the comments, whatever comes to mind first. Because in the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you exactly why you noticed that and not something else. And it's going to say something about you that you probably didn't know. In 1989, a psychologist named David Buss at the University of Texas published one of the most ambitious studies ever done on human attraction. He surveyed over 10,000 people across 37 different cultures, from Nigeria to Japan, from Brazil to Finland, from Venezuela to Zambia. He asked them all the same question: what do you look for in a long-term partner? Here's what he found. Across all 37 cultures, different countries, different religions, different languages, different economic situations, the number one most desired quality in a partner was not looks, not money, not social status, was kindness. Number two was intelligence. These two qualities, kindness and intelligence, ranked at the top of the list in virtually every culture on Earth. Why? Because in a world where survival depended on cooperation, a kind partner meant your children would be cared for, your group would protect you, your resources would be shared fairly. And an intelligent partner meant better decisions about food, shelter, threats, everything. These weren't soft preferences. They were survival signals. Now, think back to what you wrote in the comments. Whatever the first thing was that you noticed about that person, whether it was their eyes or their laugh or the way they made you feel calm, that wasn't random. Your brain was running a 3.5 million-year-old compatibility scan, reading their signals, cross-referencing them against a database you've been building since before you were born. Your gut feeling about someone. That's not a feeling, that's a result. Here's where it gets interesting. If attraction is a program, then there had to be a way to run it, a way to show someone else that you were worth choosing. Darwin figured this out in 1871. He called it sexual selection. And the key insight was this: in species where both partners get to choose, you don't just need to be strong enough to survive, you need to be visible enough to be chosen. So animals and humans developed what biologists call costly signals. Costly signal is something that's difficult and expensive to produce, precisely because that's what makes it credible. The peacock's tail is the famous example. Tail, that big, is a liability. It slows the bird down. It makes it more visible to predators. But it says something important. I'm so healthy, so well-nourished, so genetically robust that I can afford to carry this ridiculous tail and still survive. The cost is the signal. Now translate that to early humans. Around campfires, probably going back hundreds of thousands of years, people sang, they danced, they told stories. Jeffrey Miller, an evolutionary psychologist at the University of New Mexico, argues that music and dance evolved specifically as costly signals of genetic quality. To sing well, you need a healthy body and a finely tuned nervous system. To dance well, you need coordination, rhythm, motor control. These aren't things you can fake easily. Archaeological evidence shows that gifts, objects given from one person to another, appear in the human record long before formal language. Small tools, shells, pigments, objects with no obvious survival purpose. Signals, offerings, proof. So the next time you find yourself going out of your way to do something impressive, planning something carefully, making an effort that costs you time or energy, you're not trying too hard. You're running a display program that's been in our species since before we had words. Quick question. When you like someone or when you're with someone, do you ever feel that thing? That specific, uncomfortable feeling when they talk to someone else a little too long or laugh at someone else's joke a little too hard. If you've ever felt that, what I'm about to say is directly about you. Because jealousy is not a character flaw. It's not immaturity. It's not insecurity. It's called mate guarding. And it's one of the oldest behaviors in the human repertoire. In a world where finding a committed partner took years of signaling, trust building, and social coordination, losing them was a catastrophic loss. Jealousy evolved as an alarm system, a threat detection response. Your body's way of saying, something valuable to your survival is at risk. The reason it feels so physical, so gut level, so hard to rationalize away. That's not weakness. That's precision engineering. So we've talked about how love starts. Now let's talk about how it stays. Because your ancestors didn't just fall for someone and walk away. The entire evolutionary story of human love is a story about sustained attachment. And the chemical that makes that possible has a name: oxytocin. You've probably heard of it. But here's what most people don't know. Oxytocin isn't just released during childbirth or breastfeeding. It's released when you hold someone's gaze for an extended time. When you're touched. Not sexually, just touched. A hand, an arm, a shoulder. When you have a long, unguarded conversation with someone who makes you feel safe. In primates, social bonding is maintained through grooming, physical contact that takes time and says, I choose to be here with you. Humans replace that with something more flexible: sustained presence, eye contact, and voice. But the chemistry is the same. Here's the human-specific piece. Humans are one of the only primates that regularly mate face-to-face. That's not a small detail. That's a design feature. Face-to-face contact. means eye contact. Eye contact triggers oxytocin release. Oxytocin builds trust and attachment over time. The way you feel when you've spent a full day with someone and you don't want it to end. That's oxytocin doing what it was designed to do, binding you to someone, specifically gradually chemically. Back to the question I left hanging earlier. If love is a survival instinct, why does losing it feel like something inside you actually dies? Helen Fisher's team put people through the fMRI scanner again. This time, the subjects weren't in love. They were freshly heartbroken. People who had been in serious relationships that had just ended, who described the pain as constant, physical, overwhelming. The scanner showed something remarkable. The brain regions that activated most strongly in the heartbroken subjects were the anterior cingulate cortex, the same region that processes physical pain, and the ventral tegmental area, the craving center, still firing, still reaching for the person who is gone. The researchers compared the pattern to what happens in the brain during drug withdrawal. The craving without the reward. The system still running, with nowhere to go. Heartbreak isn't sadness, it's withdrawal. Your brain bonded with another person the way a synapse bonds with a substance. And when that person leaves, your brain goes through a real physical detox. So if you've ever had your heart broken and thought, I'm being dramatic, you weren't. The pain was real. The hunger was real. And the reason it eventually gets better isn't because you forget. It's because your brain slowly recalibrates, rewires, finds a new baseline. That process takes time because the thing you lost was real. Let's come back to 11 p.m. You, lying in bed, brain won't stop, thinking about one person. You used to call that embarrassing, irrational, too much. Here's what it actually is. A pair bonding drive that's 3.5 million years old, firing exactly as designed. A brain running a compatibility scan on someone it identified as a high-value match. A nervous system executing a costly signal program trying to be seen. Threat detection system protecting something it knows is rare and worth keeping. Withdrawal response doing what it does when something that matters gets taken away. Every single thing you've ever felt in a relationship, the butterflies, the obsession, the jealousy, the ache, the pull, none of it was too much. All of it was your ancient hardware doing exactly what 3.5 million years of evolution designed it to do. You weren't falling apart. You were falling exactly on purpose. The only difference between you and your ancestors. They didn't spend the night wondering if what they were feeling was normal, because they were surrounded by everyone they knew, all feeling exactly the same thing. You don't have that village anymore. But you have this, the knowledge that what's happening in your chest right now, and what happened in the chest of the first human to love another specific human is the same thing, completely exactly the same thing. If this video changed how you see your own feelings, even slightly, save it, not for someday, for a specific night. The next time you're lying in bed, can't sleep, brain running at full speed about one person, come back to this. Because in that moment, you don't need advice about what to do. You need to be reminded of what you actually are, a human being running the oldest program on Earth. And that program, every single part of it, is working exactly as designed.